40 Watters, what are y'all doing? Hanging out here, episode 28 of the 40 Watt Podcast. Thanks for joining. Gonna talk about a couple of things real fast as we do. Be sure to rate, like, share, review, all those things that you do to all the things in podcast world or YouTube video world. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please share it with a friend. That helps the podcast a whole bunch. If you like what you hear, there's a bunch of other ways you can help support the podcast as well. You can go to our Linktree account, which is down in the either the podcast details or the video description below. Click that. You'll find all the links to all the social media, all the merch, all the things. Literally, they're all in one spot. It's really easy. Also, you can go to patreon.com/40wattpodcast, where for as little as $3 a month or as much as $50 or more, however much you want to give, you can support the podcast. Your support is very helpful. It helps pay for things like hosting fees and actually mostly just hosting fees at this point. So $3 gets you some little extra swag sent from me and my great appreciation and a shout out on the podcast. At $5, you start getting our Patreon exclusive episodes of the podcast where I go into a little more depth with my guests. Sometimes we're going to be doing some other things, maybe some album reviews, maybe some looks at some other interesting things in the gear and music world. And for as much as $50 a month, you can get a lesson. I'll teach you guitar, piano, bass, music theory. Don't care. We can just sit and bullshit for a while. I don't care. It's your time. So go over to patreon.com/40wattpodcast. And as always, I donate 25% of the proceeds from my Patreon to charity every year. This year's charity is St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. So 25% of all of my Patreon earnings will be going to St. Jude in December. So go over there, check it out, support if you can. If you can't, share with a friend. Done. Under 3 minutes. That's a new record. All right. Today, y'all, I'm excited. I've got Zach Broyles from Mythos Pedals on the podcast, also from the Dipped in Tone podcast as well. Zach, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm here. I made it finally.
Yeah. So, actually, I'm just going to jump right into that. So you recently opened up shop. You're not out of your garage anymore.
Yes.
Are you now like, can we not call you boutique anymore? Is it you're not in a garage?
No, I mean, there's a lot of boutique guys that have well outgrown the garage. But no, I mean, and it's funny, I feel like I skirt the line with boutique anyway, because of because of, the pandemic and right before, I had to shift a lot of my construction methods so I could keep up with demand. And the cork sniffers out there might open some stuff and say it's not boutique anymore anyway. So.
Oh, they can just shut the hell up. if you're sniffing corks, you're not drinking the wine, and you're missing the whole point of it.
See, you get it.
Yeah, no. As someone who, I've got very, very, very controversial opinions on wine when it comes to like connoisseurs, and so pedals actually, it's in the same ball game. People get a little too uppity about it. It's like, just find what you like and don't stop paying attention. Right.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, SMD's not the end of the world, y'all.
No, and it's funny, I have so many friends and professional musicians that I know that they prefer some of the SMT stuff, SMD, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. And I do too, and ultimately, I think the thing that people need to remember is I love this stuff. And if I thought it sounded bad, I wouldn't make it that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. So. You're not going to put out something you think sounds bad, just end of the day. That's just the way it is. And if, people want to get really uppity about it, they can go find the things that are still, like I've got I should have gotten it earlier. One sec, hold on. That was riveting podcasting for all of like 2 seconds. So like, I'm going to share this because I got it today and I'm really excited about things when I get them. I'm sure you can relate. Mm-hmm. I got this. This is by a guy named Eric Brania. He makes Brania effects.
Oh.
He's real small builder. When I say small, like the biggest batch of anything he made, I think is like 4. You know what I mean? And he sells them on Reverb. This is a Rangemaster built to original spec. I can't remember which transistors he used, but he wrote it on the inside. And it is so impractical and it is so like old school. It's amp top, no foot switch. There's a switch on the front right here, and it sounds freaking amazing. And
Man, well, we've seen a resurgence of the old school Rangemaster coming back.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, why don't do it like that? But
well,
I get it.
I told
I
him.
get it.
I told him it's like, because I was talking to him today about it because it arrived. I wanted to let him know it got here, and I plugged it in. It sounds great. There's no AC jack. There's no,
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it's pure battery powered. It's got a small draw, so it's not too big a deal. It's got a cool knob in the back that does like a full ranged, mids pushed, and then like pure like treble booster type thing.
Yes.
But I told him, he was talking about doing another run of these because they were fun. I said, well, what you ought to do is you've done the traditional thing. Like I think he did 2 or 3 of these. I said, now you got to do it like just add a jack for a foot switch. Don't make it a pedal. Like he's talking about doing that. But I was like, make a jack for a foot switch so that like you're sort of skirting the line there between traditional and making it usable.
Yeah. Well, the thing about that, and I was when you said it didn't have that, and I've thought about this before, is like you'd have to use like a MIDI cable because you need more than 2 connections.
Oh yeah.
To turn it on, you'd need at least 4. So yeah, you'd have to have, it'd be a whole thing, but you could totally do it. You just get on Mouser and buy the parts.
There you go. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to share that because I was really excited about it. But since we're talking about, small builders and doing it old school ways, and somebody, somebody's going to listen to this and go, oh, that sounds amazing. That's the way it should be. And they'll get an SMD treble booster and say, oh, it doesn't sound as good because it sounds fucking identical.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like all circuits, and especially when you're getting into like stuff with transistors, because there is no surface mount germanium anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you made a Rangemaster with surface mount resistors and caps and still had a through hole transistor, unless you really matched all the transistors so that every unit sounds the same, they won't.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
But to me, it's like, I like the fact that I'm using surface mount parts because there's so many values that, let's say, hey, like this unit sounds different when I measure the resistor because it's swayed. It's like a different value than what the bands say it is. And with surface mount, you can buy like every value and they're locked in. Like they're not going to sway that much because they're like 1% tolerance. So if you're recreating something old or whatever, you can make it perfect and make it repeatable. And to me, that's really appealing, like the repeatable aspect. It just takes a little bit more legwork because it's never like a one-to-one thing. You can't just take a through hole design and boom, make it surface mount and it sounds fine. I mean, sometimes it does, but you have to put the work in. And I think once you do that, you can totally make a viable product. I mean, I believe that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I've heard you talk about it before. And I think at some point you may have actually thought about going back to through hole. You thought about switching back. I can't remember, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do. So I have a couple different products that have through hole. I make the Wildwood Mjolnir. The Mjolnir is my Klon Centaur clone, and that one's 99% through hole. It has a few surface parts, and then I make the Spartan series, which are like an homage to the first pedals I built with even more. Like there's no ribbon cable; it's just all wires. And,
right.
And that still has surface mount parts that have no influence on the sound. They're just like for the power and to make the foot switch not pop and make the LED work. But yeah, I love building through hole, and I much prefer the look. I don't think it sounds any different, but I like the look of it, and I want to do more of that. And hopefully, this new shop and employees and all that will facilitate more time to do that.
Yeah, I was looking at the Olympus actually before we started recording, and I'm gonna have to get one at one somewhere. Actually, I've been really eyeing. Actually, I'm before I go down the gas rabbit hole of pedals. So yes, you've opened up. You're in a shop. You're sharing a space with Novo guitars.
Yes, and Revolta.
Yes. And Revolta, which brand very near and dear to my heart. I've told a couple of guests on the podcast that Novo is now the church at which I preach, because I've got a ton of guitars, and the only one that goes with me to every gig is my Novo. Period. And so I'm gonna have to get another one at some point.
Yes.
We'll see when that happens. I've got a couple of others that I want to really try though. I've had a couple of cool builders on, but there's something about those Novo guitars that they just play so great, and they're so light. Every time I hand my Novo, and that's the thing is like some people get precious about guitars, and they're like really cautious about other people playing their instruments. Every time I meet a guitar player who's never touched a Novo, I'm like, here, you need to experience this.
Well, it's funny. I went to the UK like right before the pandemic started. I went to do a guitar show in Birmingham, and then I went to Anderson's and that pedal show. But when I was at the guitar show, I took my Novo and I had it on a stand in my little booth at this small guitar show, and I think more people came by to play the guitar than they came to play the pedals, because they would stop and like, "You have a Novo?" But dude, I'm right there with you. The moment I really, because I got mine a few years ago, my first one, and I was in love before I ever got mine. But once that happened, I was like, this is it. Like, this is my favorite guitar, and I've got a few more now, and there's more that I want. Every one, it just has its own vibe and personality, and it just, every time I compare it to something else, I'm like, that's just better. I don't know.
Yeah, it just is. And that's and it took me a little while to get used to it, because, being that light, and I was a semi-hollow guy for a long time. I got a 135 and a wrong shoulder, 135 and a 137 custom back there, and playing solid body guitars, because they're closer to your body, your arm angle's different, and so it was throwing me off. But once I got through that adjustment period, now I can't put the thing down. It's always with me. And people, I love seeing some people who know who Novo is. They see him and it's great, and then other people are like, "So is that a Jazzmaster? Is that a Mustang?" Like, they don't know. And not that we're going to talk about Novo all the time, because but
why not?
But actually, it was really funny because I played one at Chicago Music Exchange years ago. Like, I can't remember if it was like 16, maybe. I can't remember the last time I was in Chicago. It's been long enough. But I played one, and it haunted me. And like, I was like, oh, well, first of all, it's expensive. Two, I didn't know anything about how to get a hold of one at that point. I was like, oh, well, that's going to pass. And then I had to watch Rhett on YouTube. Asshole flaunting that Novo in front of me every week.
Man, him and RJ, because I got hooked up with the Novo guys because through Revolta they lent me a guitar for Winter NAMM a few years ago, and I just dropped it back off there, and they gave me a tour of the shop, and I just kept going back and like talking to him, and Devin Booth was like, "We got to get you one of these guitars," and so just eventually I just it happened, and they're fantastic. I'm so happy they're my neighbors. It's a bit distracting because I'm also friends with them.
Yeah.
And so like we just go over there and talk, but it's great.
You get a little less work done, but
yeah.
Well, but you're trading that distraction for the distraction of, oh, there's dirty dishes in the sink. I really should go do those before I sit down and do more. Or, oh, the garage is a mess. I really can't work right now until it's cleaned up. Or
yes.
I don't know if that's your mindset, but that's me. Like, if there are dishes in the sink, I actually have a hard time focusing on anything else I need to do.
Man, well, for me, the biggest thing was, so for those that don't know, I pretty much built out of my garage for the past 2 years, and it was a nightmare. I mean, like, at first it was fine when things were not as crazy.
Yeah.
But as after I got back from the UK and that pedal show video dropped and Anderton's video dropped, and like, I already felt like I had my place, I felt like I was established. And then after those videos came out, it kind of exploded. And I mean, all of guitar did when the world shut down. So it was literally just me working, except for meals and some small family time, like every hour of the day until midnight or later, almost every day. My wife forced me to take off Saturdays. I mean, much to my protest, I did not want to do it. But, when you go from building, 70, 80, 100 or so a month to like 400, you just have to make it work. And the garage just felt like I felt like that scene in New Hope when they're in the trash compactor and like everything's just like closing up,
Yeah.
like holding the rods. Like that's how I felt like every day, because there was just more and more stuff to facilitate what I had to do. But at the same time, like I'm in a garage with a lawnmower and like bicycles and just crap. And it was awful.
Yeah, I bet. And so moving in with Novo, and now you have a commute. We were talking about that before we got started. That's the other trade-off is Nashville commute, because you don't live like in Nashville proper. You live outside the city. Correct?
Yeah, I live in Hendersonville, so like getting downtown at not rush hour is fine. You know, and the shop is closer to the airport. And with no traffic, half an hour is fine. But coming back, I'm coming up 65, and if you've ever been in and around Nashville and tried to go north on 65 after 4 o'clock, it's just a zoo, and it's awful.
Yeah, no, it sounds awful. I've talked about it on the podcast. I lived in Murfreesboro for a couple of years. I went to MTSU, and so spent half my time in Murfreesboro, half my time in Nashville, back and forth. And so, of course, I went to Murfreesboro. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. I have to remember 2020 happened. Sometimes I just skip over that year entirely. I guess it was 2 years ago now. Went to see a guy I went to MTSU with, who's killer songwriter now, named Sean McConnell. Came to see him in Nashville at Basement. I get these backwards. East. Basement East is the one that isn't actually a basement, right?
Yeah, it's an actual venue.
Yeah, Basement East. So went to see him, but we decided to stay in Murfreesboro, right? Because I had not been there in forever. Thought I'd catch up with a couple of friends. My wife had never been there, and I'd talked about it plenty. And it's a different place than when I was there in 2002.
Oh man, I went to MTSU probably 2004 or 5, and went there for a few years. And yeah, we went back just a few weeks ago, because I was bound and determined to get an Xbox, and they had one at the Target in Murfreesboro.
Yeah,
I was like, we're going, and we like drove around and got dinner, and I was like, what? This road wasn't even here. Like, what's going on with this place?
No, and like they were just starting to expand the interstate there between Murfreesboro and Nashville when I was there. And now it's like 8 lanes one way, it feels like. I don't know how many it actually is, but
it feels like LA or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. God, it's insane how fast when I was there, I remember looking, and I think the population was like 80,000, and now it's approaching 150,000.
Man,
it's ridiculous how fast that place has grown.
Yeah.
Anyway, because everything's moving east in Nashville. I mean, that just is what it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, like it. Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of things west of town have definitely come up and gotten a lot nicer and safer and stuff. But East Nashville is like one of the, it's one of the places to be. It's where everyone is.
Exactly. That's why I don't go there. No.
Yeah.
No,
either.
I love Nashville. I love tons of stuff about Nashville, but it has outgrown my comfort level for long term.
Yeah. Yeah. We moved out here a few years ago, and after, the deal was struck for the shop, my wife was like, "Oh, we got to move back to Nashville." And then we want to, we love that town.
Yeah.
And not just for the music, but just for, the people and the things to do, because even though we're only half an hour away, and that's nothing, you can be in Nashville and it takes you half an hour to get to another place in Nashville.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't complain, but still it's like, you got to be where you're comfortable, and hopefully in the next year or so we'll be making a trek back to town.
I gotcha. It definitely shorten your commute a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe.
Just a little. But yeah, so you got into this. This is where, so on this podcast, you can talk about Carter without making people drink. We have no drinking game associated with this podcast.
Not yet.
Yet. Probably every time I mention Murfreesboro, end up being a drink, because I did really enjoy my time there in Middle Tennessee, and I keep telling people that's where I'm going to retire, somewhere in Middle Tennessee. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's great.
It's gorgeous. But. So you sort of got started. We're going to backtrack just a little bit. I know you worked at Carter for a little while, which is my favorite music store in the country, period, that I've been to. I haven't been to all of them, obviously, but and it has nothing to do with the name. My last name is Carter, but it has nothing to do with that. It's just such a cool store. And I remember it wasn't the first time I was there. I think it was the second time I'd ever gone there. And I had a little money and I wasn't really looking for anything, but I had some gear money. I was like, I want something like weird and quirky, like something not mainstream. And I didn't even realize, but Walter's showing me around. He was who I happened to be talking to. And so he knew my budget. I told him I've got like $1,000, maybe $1,200, and I want something weird. And so he starts showing me around, and we must have walked around the store for an hour, and he's putting like $3,000 arch tops in my hand. Like, it's like, I know this isn't what you're looking for, but this is so cool, and just puts it in my hands. I'm like,
Right.
what a cool store. It had to have been an awesome experience working there.
Oh yeah, I mean, like every retail thing has its highs and lows,
Yeah.
but the coolest thing in that store was the instruments, of course, and just the plethora of people you know the heroes you get to meet. And usually it's like a complete shock when those things happen. But yeah, the guitars and the stories and just the wealth of knowledge you can learn from spending just a few months in a place like that. But a couple years, I was there for a couple years, you start to know, like, oh, this is really what a burst feels like. This is what a PAF sounds like. This is what a pre-CBS Fender actually looks like. It's really special. Oh, like all the pre-war Martins, like all that stuff. Getting to play Dumbles and Trainwrecks. It's like I had to like take a step back almost every day and be just grateful for where I was, for being able to touch literally millions of dollars worth of instruments almost every day, and kind of be like, I don't know, the gatekeeper of these things to so many people. It was really special, and I'm really glad for the time that I had there.
So, and it's in this time, at some point you were looking at these pedals going, I can do better than that.
No.
I'm just kidding.
So no, I started building Mythos as just like, I had messed with pedals for a while. I started modding pedals in probably 2007 or so.
Okay.
And in probably 2009, 2008, I started building things without any sort of name. So in 2010, I started building some stuff and giving it some sort of purpose. And so that's where Mythos came along. But I never took it seriously. And before I ever had a job there, I had tried to start doing the pedal thing again, and I consigned a few pieces. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door for the gig. But Carter was a huge help in all that, being able to talk to people and get experience and show things to people. But also I spent a lot of time connecting around town, showing people what I made. And slowly but surely it finally clicked, and I was able to quit and pursue it full time in December of 2017.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now, I know that like your Wildwood Mjolnirs specifically, they vanish as soon as they're available, basically.
Well, there's a wait list.
Yeah, wait list at this point.
There's probably, I know there's at least 300 people on it. Ooh. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's weird. I never thought, oh, I'll have a wait list, but it's like,
right.
They are kind of the people that take care of that.
Yeah.
And this every month they say, build it, send us as many as you can make. So I'm like, okay.
That is crazy. And they look awesome. Like, I'm not gonna lie, if I have to choose between your normal box Mjolnir and the Wildwood, I'm going the Wildwood.
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
I like bigger pedals. Like, I love the Klon. It's somewhere behind me, but it's huge and it's so impractical and it's perfect. I love it.
I have gotten to a point. I was telling somebody else this recently. I've gotten to a point where I don't care about practicality anymore. It's like, I play big amps. I play recently. This is a recent acquisition. I've got a 2-rock traditional clean and a 212. And I sold my deluxe reverb and my Tweed Deluxe. I was like, screw it. I don't enjoy playing them as much. I'm gonna take the thing I enjoy playing. It's just gonna be what it is.
Oh man, I recently got a Bloomfield, and they're behind me, and I knew it was gonna be heavy because I got a combo. Yeah. And my room here is upstairs, and I was taking it up the steps. And I'm like, this is where it's gonna live. It's not going anywhere.
I play this bar in Oxford, Mississippi. Sometimes actually I'm playing there Saturday night. And I'll post a picture on Instagram tomorrow of the stairs. that you have to go up to get to this venue, and they're outdoors. It's the only entrance in, and it is awful. But you know what? Forget it. I'll do it. It's just one of those things. As long as I can carry the cab, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Now I don't. Right now, I'm not playing with an actual 2-rock cab because it's on order, and all that kind of stuff is backed up. I've got an Avatar cab that got handles on the sides and carry it up the stairs, but the amp head alone is as heavy as the cab.
Oh yeah.
The head's insanely heavy.
Well, they have such big transformers.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're monsters.
It's a machine. I mean, and I feel so very fortunate to have played as many Dumbles as I have, which is, I mean, I don't know, is at least 10 or maybe more. I don't know. And
that's awesome.
I firmly believe I would rather have a 2-rock. I mean, from from a monetary, if I was going to make, if I got one for a deal, sure, give it to me. I'll flip it. But for a practicality and just reliability, and tonally, I feel like the 2-rock it's every bit as good, and they're so much more consistent, and everybody can use them. If it wasn't
you're not trying to get on Alexander's good side to get one.
Right.
So I'm coming up to Summer NAMM this year, and I'm going to go over. There's another YouTuber I'm going to be hanging out with. I'm not going to mention it just in case. And I'm going over him. He's going to film at Carter a little bit during it, and I'm crossing. I'm going to hope I get to play that Dumble they've still got there, because I've seen them. I've never played one, but I've never I've played a burst. I tell people this story all the time. I played a gig once in this country bar in Clarksdale, where I'm from. And we played the first set, and this guy comes up and talks guitar with you. You get those at the end of the first set. This guy just wants to come talk guitar. Yeah. He's like, "Hey, man, I got this really cool guitar with me. You want to see it?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" He comes back in, and he hands me a Nocaster.
Oh.
Not a reproduction, not a reissue, a Nocaster. He starts telling me the history. I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And so I'm talking, and he's like, "You can play it the rest of the set if you want to." I spent the next 2 hours playing a Nocaster into a Mesa Boogie. It was
oh man, hey,
yeah, it's this cool moment, So it's but Dumble is that's the thing I've never gotten to play.
Well, you might hate it.
Oh no, I very much might. I just want to be able to say I've done it. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
touching all the bases. Pokemon, I've got to collect them all.
Oh, hey, yeah. There was a guy that, back to the shop, I was interviewing people today, and he pulled up, and on the back of his car was a silhouette of a Magikarp, and I was like, all right, we're going to get along with that.
See, I've got to, no, it left me. We'll go back to Dumble. There's a guy recently on the gear page, controversy alert, who was selling a Dumble, and he had an ODS, and he had it for sale, $125,000.
Yeah.
What?
Crazy.
What the hell?
It doesn't make sense. I mean, well, it does. It's
sorta.
I having played as many bursts as I have, which has been quite a few too, because in Nashville you bring them to Groons, Rumble Seat, or Carter. It's that's where they go. I would almost rather if I was going to have to play a Gibson, I'd rather have a custom shop. They don't sound the same. They're not the same, but it's not,
Yeah, but every 59 burst isn't the same either.
No.
I mean.
Yeah. I've played some dog bursts, and I just think it's just silly. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just vanity at that point, really, unless you're a pure collector. You can get the job done just as well with new guitars.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, old is cool. There's a vibe to it. I get it.
Yeah.
But the one burst I've played, the one, I played it. I genuinely can't tell you if it was a great one or a dog, because I've never played but, the one. But I do know that compared to, say, the 58 and 59 reissues, the R9s and the R8s I've played, it's a half dozen in one hand, 6 in the other. It doesn't matter. They were all great guitars to me.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's one thing that my time at Carter really taught me is vintage guitars are just guitars. It's they're still just guitars, and there are good ones and bad ones. When they're really good, it's something magical and special. But oftentimes it's just another guitar.
Yeah.
And that seems really, I don't know, is that jaded or I don't know. Is that the wrong way to look at it? Maybe, but it's definitely not what people selling them want you to think.
Nope.
But I don't know. There have definitely been moments where I've played some that were set up perfectly. But I will say the best vintage guitars I've ever played were the ones that had been played and were super beat up and like had been refretted or pickups were rewound or whatever. And those are the ones because they spoke to somebody. You saw that they spoke to somebody. They're usually the ones that'll speak to you.
Yeah, and I think that applies. And I was talking about this concept with somebody recently. I think that applies regardless of the value of the instrument too. It's like you see a guitar that was played, you've got a good guitar. It may need some care, it may need some getting back into shape, but if it was somebody connected with it enough to play that hard and play that much. I'm originally from Clarksdale, Mississippi, blues capital. Everybody, Memphis can say what they want. But so I used to hang out in the shop there all the time, and it's mostly a secondhand store. A lot of used stuff. But that means that some really cool stuff would come through all the time too.
Mm-hmm.
They really specialize in things like all the Ks and the silver tones and the all those old school Sears and Roebuck stuff, and a lot of it's just shit. So much of it is just shit. But occasionally you'd get an arch top that would come through, and it was just like, that thing is amazing. And it's this $200 K. You know?
What's funny is some of my favorite silver tones and airlines and things like that came through that I thought were the best were the ones that weren't played. They're like the ones that I guess they hadn't had the neck twisted by keeping strings on it for so many years. But yeah, man, and those guitars are so hit or miss, but when they're right, they're like, oh, this is the most inspiring instrument because it's unlike anything else you'll have. And it sounds like nothing else.
That's exactly right. And Ronnie, who runs the store, Bluestown Music, Clarksdale, Mississippi, Ronnie has become really good at taking those things and making them playable. Because a lot of them he buys sight unseen. He orders them. He can't keep them in the store. Like once Blues Festival hits, they'll all clear out from tourists buying them. Like he had Elvis Costello walked in and bought this old Teisco that he had on the wall. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
He saw it on the wall, had his guitar tech with him, and he wanted it because it was the same guitar that George Harrison had started on. It was the same model Teisco. And sure enough, there's a concert footage it's a live concert. Elvis Costello, I don't remember what the title of the concert was, but he has that guitar out. His tech's got it playable, and he's at it, and even mentions buying it from Ronnie in Clarksdale, Mississippi. It's real cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So that's the kind of stuff that we would see come through. Like nobody was walking into Clarksdale with a burst.
That's a dream, right? You want to see that like old Lifton case like come in. You're like, oh, what's that?
But there are some really cool things. Like right now, Ronnie's got a 64 Refin Jazzmaster hanging on his wall in Fiesta Red that I'm like,
nice.
It's been there a little while. How much could I talk him into? But
man, those are the guitars I feel like you shouldn't. Well, you might want to sleep on them depending on how the refin's done. But I think that's the next like wave of big collectors things, because like we're starting to see student model guitars become way more popular. All the the Music Masters and the Melody Makers that Fender and Gibson made, but all the refin stuff I think is going to be because I mean eventually we're going to like the price is going to get so high we can't buy it anymore.
Exactly.
Like even like 70s Fenders are just starting to get crazy, but you can find some 60s stuff that's refinned or has a broken headstock, but it's still good, for a good deal.
I think some of that stuff, I think we're already starting to see some of it rise and go. Go 70s Fenders. Ronnie, when he opened his store, I was really good friends with his son. That's how I got to know Ronnie. Me and his son played guitar together. And Ronnie, he opened the store with basically his collection, because he was like selling it off and trimming down how much he had, and he was like had enough to start the inventory in the store. And one of the things he had was this 75 black with a white guard Strat, and that to this day is the heaviest guitar I've ever held in my hands ever. I did not know a Strat could be 12 pounds. I just did not know it could happen.
It's like paint it again.
I had a Stingray 5-string bass that was lighter than that Strat.
Man, they're boat anchors. They really are crazy. And that was going to be my first guitar, was the 70s Fender. And I didn't get it because I felt bad because my dad was like, we should get you this. And I was like, I knew it was more expensive. I was like, no, Dad, you don't have to buy this for me. And it was really heavy. And so I made excuses so he wouldn't buy it. But otherwise I could have had like a cool guitar and he was only going to pay like $500 for it. So
yeah.
And live and learn.
All the future chiropractic bills that go with it, you know. Has someone who plays a Les Paul still, despite my better judgment, I still play a heavy Les Paul. So
right,
it is what it is. So
mine's not too bad.
Yeah, mine's 9.5, a little
That's
less than
heavy.
9.5. It's pretty heavy, but it's not. It could be worse. It could be one of those 10.5, 11-pound jobs that they still make. They're still out there. I bought that guitar sight unseen after the new management took over, new CEO took over at Gibson, put the standard back to what it should be.
Right.
And I got it from Sweetwater, called up my rep, and I told him, okay, here's what I need you to do today. And I wish I were making this up. I wish this were being dramatic. I said, I play this style, these types of guitars. This is what I like. I need you to go play every 50s neck Les Paul that you've got in Gold Top or Tobacco Burst, and I'm buying the best one. And so he went and played guitar for 3 hours and came back.
He went and had a sandwich for 3 hours and said, I think this was pretty good.
Nah, I hope not.
No.
I've had the same rep for a long time, luckily. I know it's really interesting. Like, I used to laugh at that whole guy calling me because I bought a MIDI cable 2 weeks later, trying to make sure the MIDI cable's okay, but I don't know. I've had the same guy for a long time, so.
Right, man. I haven't started making Sweetwater purchases until recently, but we were doing an episode of the podcast, and I saw that there was a Behringer analog delay for $28. I think it's even cheaper now, but it's like a real Bucket Brigade like DM2 clone, and so I was like, I'm buying that. If free shipping, like what? And before they even shipped it, they called me like, hey, yeah, do you need a power supply? I was like, no, I think I got it.
That's awesome.
But I mean, good on them, because if someone buys that, they may be like a total novice and not know. And like a delay eats batteries, so you got to have a power supply. So yeah, that's good.
And I just looked it up. It is now $19.
Yeah.
It is.
I knew Behringer dropped all their prices. It's a full fat DM2 with like real Bucky Brigade chips inside it. It's crazy.
Huh. Hold on.
It sounds good. It sounds good.
I mean, I'm a sucker for analog delay, which is going to bring us to my next point. Sorry, hold on just a second, podcast listeners, while I purchase a pedal live on a podcast. All right, there we go. It's headed to me.
That was easy.
Yeah, nice and easy, isn't it? I love analog delay. I just do. And so,
same.
And it'll be a fun one to shoot out on the YouTube channel there. Maybe I'll do a video on it. So you have your first non-drive pedal now.
Yes.
Which originally was not supposed to be just an analog delay. I know that from you talking about it.
Yes. Yeah. So initially I was going to make a digital delay that had basically like a tape delay with a preamp, but it would have subdivisions and modulation, like a Deluxe Memory Man modulation. So it was all like my favorite ideas in one box.
Yeah.
And the prototype sounds awesome. But if you turn the mix knob really high, you can hear this the whole time.
Oh, no.
Couldn't chase the noise out of it. And so after playing it and comparing it with, I love Ibanez vintage delays. So like an 89, I have an 8080, the Maxon 8999. Like those are my favorite delays. I just like lined them all up and compared it to, the original one was called the Oracle as well. Right. And I just said, this is not me. This is what I think people would want. And it's really good, but it's not me. So I just pushed all the parts into a box under a shelf in the garage and called my friend John Snyder, and we collaborated. He did all the heavy lifting and designed a full analog circuit, 2 chips, so it's around 600 milliseconds with the tap tempo, and it's like that's it. That's all it has. It's really simple.
No, it's amazing. I've listened to a bunch of clips on it, and I'm gonna have to get one. I'm at a point now where, like, drives, I've got so many drive pedals just laying around, and it happens fast. Like
Oh, yeah.
I blinked, and all of a sudden I'm like, where the hell did all this fuzz come from? Where did all these overdrives come from?
I counted my pedals, and I have over 100, and only like 5 of them are not overdrives or fuzzes.
Okay, I'm not as bad. I sold a bunch of my stuff a while back because I think we actually talked about this on Facebook at one point in a comment thread. But I had a giant pedal board, 70 pounds in a case, kind of thing with I had all the Boss 500 pedals, and I had 6 different drives, and I also had a Univibe, and I had to have a wah pedal and a volume and an expression and an ES8 to control it all. And I was like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
I realized I also have a Helix.
Right.
And I was like, every gig that I would need this pedal board, I have a Helix. And which was musicals, show choirs, church gigs, those kinds of things. And it's like, why am I doing this twice?
Right.
So I stripped it down, sold a bunch of pedals, bought an HX Stomp, put on the pedal board, and now it's like 2 drive pedals and an HX Stomp. But I didn't stop buying pedals, though. That's the thing. I sold everything off, but then I kept buying pedals.
Well, I mean, I think overdrives are one of those things, and it's like so interesting to me because I always think people are going to get bored of this.
They'll be fine.
Who's going to keep buying a new overdrive? Like, if I make another version of X, Y, or Z, is it going to sell? And people just love overdrives and new flavors. And, it's fun to see what a builder or a company does, because I've bought a lot of tube screamers over the years, and only a few were made by Ibanez. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I feel that. Actually, it's funny we talk about tube screamers. I just recently, I realized I'd sold everything off. Then I looked at my collection, and I was like, I don't own a tube screamer anymore.
Shame.
I don't have a tube screamer. Well, I bought I'll be controversial. I bought what I think is, in my opinion, the best tube screamer that was made. And it's the Voodoo Lab Sparkle Drive.
It's a good one. I don't like the clean mix on it.
I like it, but I like to use it for different things. Like you typically don't have it on. I would use it as a tube screamer, but occasionally I'll need it because I'm stacking overdrives a certain way. Being able to just add in that clean to it, because I'm pretty sure I think that's how their circuit works. Is you're adding in the clean signal rather than adding in the drive signal. I can't remember exactly how that lines up, but
I think it works in parallel.
Okay.
So it's like the clean mix is like over top of everything else.
Yeah.
But I'm checking the schematic right now.
And I never turn that clean knob up too high, but I like having it. I like being it available, because if I'm, certain guitars are pushing that pedal a little harder and giving me a little more gain maybe than I wanted out of it. Especially my Les Paul really, really pushes that pedal.
Right.
Some people just don't like a Les Paul into a tube screamer to begin with because they think it's just too much mid, but
no, it's great.
No such thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of in parallel. It's kind of, it splits the signal after the first input buffer. But anyway, it sounds great on I like a clean mix on a bass. I think that's fantastic. But for me, I think the best tube screamer ever made is still being made, and it's made by Ibanez, and it's the tube screamer, because guess what? They sound almost identical to old ones. I had at Carter, we had Analog Man, and so we had the True Vintage mod pedals, and I got one of those and A-B'd it to an original. It's like, okay, the original's a little louder, but that could just be the pot tolerances.
Yeah, right.
But other than that, I could get them to sound the same, and one's $700 and another's $200. So,
yeah, I have played tube screamers my entire life. It was not the first pedal I had, but it was definitely in the first 5.
What was the first pedal you had?
First pedal I ever had. So I had played clean. Because I started out as an acoustic guitar player. That's just how I started, and then eventually bought an electric guitar after I discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm not that guy, but I still, that was the genesis. Like I saw Stevie play, and then I was like, okay, I want to do that.
Sure.
And my first pedal was, because Musician's Friend had them on clearance at the time, a Morley Diamond Distortion.
Nice.
Most people don't even know that series existed. But they did this series of like gemstone pedals. There was like a diamond distortion. There was a crystal chorus. There was an emerald echo, which, by the way, is a killer analog delay.
Yeah.
If you can find one. They pop up on Reverb anywhere from $80 to $200. You never know, because there's only ever one at any given time. And there was a sapphire flanger. Is that right? Not a phaser? I think it was a flanger. Anyway, but I had that pedal, and I was sorely disappointed.
Oh.
Not that it didn't sound good, but it didn't sound like I thought. It was called a distortion. That thing was a light overdrive at best. So it was a super light drive.
That's before the days of knowing, like, oh, you have to have a tube amp and crank it and then put that on top of it, and then you get distortion.
Oh, absolutely. I was playing that thing into my PV audition chorus, you know?
Oh, yeah. I had a
off.
PV backstage and an Ibanez Smashbox, so I had a full distortion pedal. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it was of a time. It was a time.
Yeah. After that, I got a Proco Rat, and that changed what I understood about distortion at that point. And
Yeah.
And then I think I got the Tube Screamer. And from then on, I've always had a Tube Screamer until recently, whether it was the Tube Screamer, the Sparkle Drive. I actually had a Sparkle Drive that I had modded to TS-808 specs and up the bass, all those things that everybody does.
Yeah.
And it got stolen. Had another Tube Screamer. I had an 80s Tube Screamer that I had come into possession of for a little while. And then I had the Full Drive 2. Then I had the Full Drive 2 MOSFET, and then I went through the whole gamut of full drives. They all sound like Tube Screamers, guys. It's just pick a great one. Like, why are we hunting down when you can buy the actual Tube Screamer for what, $99?
Well, yeah, something like that. I mean, an 808's a little bit more expensive.
Well, yeah, 808.
It's more like to me, when I look at a Tube Screamer enclosure, like it's way more interesting than just like a normal 125B enclosure, like what I use, because it's the Tube Screamer is a die-cast box, and it's beautiful. And I don't know, the Ibanez pedals are my favorite. Like all the Ibanez and Maxon stuff. That's like, those are the pedals that I dig probably the most of all the old school style things. They're my faves.
I have it in my head that I'm going to collect all of the 9 Series pedals. I have it in my head. In fact, I have a reverb search saved for every individual 9 Series pedal, waiting for them to pop up at the right price for me to buy them.
Man, well, there's some that are like, they're barely worth it.
Oh, I know. Oh, absolutely. But it's like, there's this completionist mentality. You play video games. You understand. Sometimes you get into this completionist mentality. It was like playing, in the old days, playing Legend of Zelda and trying to collect all those golden skulls, spider skulls. You're like, I have to get them all.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
Oh, it does matter. It totally matters.
Gotta collect them all. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, it's a completionist thing, and I have these things, certain things, and it I don't want to say OCD, because that's really disingenuous, and like people who actually have OCD that actually deal with this disorder, but it is a borderline compulsion for me that, like, once I find something I like with a pedal brand, it's like suddenly I'm like, oh, I like this pedal. I want to have most of my pedal board that brand. Like,
right.
I'll go through that phase and have to battle myself out of it. So, that's my concession to it, is one day I'll start collecting all those 9 Series pedals, and probably waiting too late, because a lot of them are getting really expensive now.
Oh, they're crazy. I mean, Tube Screamer, the Super Tube Screamer is really expensive. Like, I'm that way about like details on a guitar. Like when I got my R9, I was spoiled because, I was working at the shop, and so I saw all the real ones and all the real parts, and like, oh, hey, these pickup rings look weird. They don't look right. They don't look like the old ones. And so I drove my wife crazy for like a year because I would get all these tiny little packages and she would say, what's that? And I'm like, oh, it's this. And I'd pull out like a switch tip. It's made of a Catalan rod, just like a real one. She was like, how much was that? I was like, oh, this was $50. She's like, $50? I drove her crazy, but now it's like done, and so I don't have to change any parts on it.
Well,
but
there you
I'm
go.
like the guy that like, oh, the dimple on the top of the knob has got to be like just like this, and and there's certain things that I do make concessions for. Like I like RS Guitar Works pots. I don't want to buy like I've tried some of the replica Central Lab pots. I don't like them. I like these, and but yeah, the minutia tends to get a hold of me, and so I totally get it.
Yeah, and I try not to get too in the weeds on that stuff. That's the key thing, because like as much as I like rationally in my brain, I know certain things don't matter, but they matter, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like they matter to you even though they do not matter. Like I am an aesthetic person. I can never say the word that's the noun for someone who's an aesthetic person. There's one word that I can't say, aesthete anyway.
Anesthesiologist.
Yes, that's it. Oh, I'd make so much more money. but like I can't this is so dumb. I'm so sorry. I can't play an amp with a mismatched cab. It needs to be
I like it.
It needs to be the cab that matches the amp for me. Like it bothers me. Like
Well,
I've got like having my 2-rock on top of an Avatar cab bothers me.
I love like I think amps that stuff doesn't bother me. Like like there's videos of Paul Kossoff playing like homemade cabs, and they're not right. They don't look like Marshall cabs, and I'm like, that's so cool. And I love all those videos of Joe Walsh with like his Marshall cabs like on the side, and this looks like it's so dumb, but it's perfect. I love it.
Like I think that looks cool too, but like for me, I'm like not for me. I can't do it. I need it to match. Like I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a weird aesthetic thing for me. Like I bought recently, it's back here in the corner. I actually traded for, that's a divided by 13 AMW 39. That's their Marshall. I've been wanting a Marshall. I've had a couple of near misses getting like a JTM 45 and like one of the 90s Plexi reissues. Just had some near misses. Wasn't able to make a deal work, right? And that popped up, and I made a trade for it that was, to be honest, heavily weighted financially in my favor. I can't believe you made the trade, but he suggested it, not me. So I was like, I'm not trying to lowball anybody.
Right.
But I needed a divided by 13 cab for it, and so finally found one. And now they make some really, really cool cabs. Like I got it's the Diagonal 212. I really like I like it because it's not as tall as say the 2-rock cabs get. Or like I had a Dr. Z amp a while back, and they have that similar really tall 212 cab. Yeah, I like the fact that the Diagonal one is a little, I don't know, it's a little more stage friendly. That makes sense,
right? Man, speaking of Marshalls, have you checked out that new PRS HX amp?
I'm just now seeing things about it, but I haven't played one or even listened to one yet. I've just seen pictures.
Well, I think they just now announced it.
Okay.
Because like they made the HXDA,
right?
Which I have heard, and it's like it's so good. And I love the Dave Grissom amp, and like PRS amps to me, like there's some that really work for a variety of things, and some that do like one sound, and they do that one sound like really well, and it's
What's
very
that one that they did
PRS-y.
like the high gain thing?
Geez, I can't remember. That was the Archon.
Archon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they make the Mark Tremonti one, or I think they still do. But yeah, the HX is like a copy of one of Jimmy's amps from Woodstock.
Oh my gosh.
And it sounds great, and I want it. But like, what do I have a 2-rock, I have a Victoria, I have an HX Stomp with a power cab, which with IRs sounds really good.
I've got the power cabs too, and I use them. I think they sound great.
Yeah.
But I wanted the Marshall thing. Like,
yeah,
I really wanted it, and so now I've got it. So it's loud. It 39 watts, but it's loud as hell. It's got a great master volume on it, which is rare, but it's got a really good one. It really can go like really, really classic tones at like the lower gain settings. And it can get into like 800 territory when you start pushing it. Yeah. The way I explained it to somebody, because they were asking me about it, because they were looking at one, I was like, dude, I've had this 2 days. You know what I mean? But here, let me turn it up. I'll play some settings, send you some videos. You can hear it. But I had a 1971 Marshall Super Bass back in the day, like 100-watt head, 412, the whole 9 yards. There's nothing like playing a blues gig with a Marshall 100-watt full half stack on stage.
Oh yeah.
But I told you I don't do things conveniently. But I told him it was a lot like that amp at the low gain settings with a usable EQ. Like, because that Marshall EQ was useless. It was completely useless.
The secret I've always heard is that you turn the treble and the mids all the way up and the bass just like on 2, and then you just got to like use the tone knob on your guitar.
Yeah. What I did is actually I just maxed both channels, maxed all the knobs, turned everything up, because I played with a lot of low end at that time too, which was dumb. It's early in my playing, but then I would just bridge the channels and turn up the not so bright, not so dark channel, because it's the super bass. There's not really a bright channel on it,
right?
But that's what I would do. I just chain them that way so that I got a tone I liked out of it. And I thought it was a great amp. I should have never have sold it. I got that amp for $400.
Well, and that's before they went to PCB construction and everything. So that's yeah.
That's only a couple of years after they got rid of the plexi faceplates. 71. It had been dropped off of a moving truck. And like the cabinet had been splintered, and somebody before me, not splintered, like broken at the corners, right? The dovetail had separated, and somebody before me had ripped all the Tolex off of it and stained it in like a dark wood finish. Yeah, it looked so 70s that it hurt.
Yeah.
Like, physically hurt me. But it sounded great. Like literally that day that it fell off the truck, they had put new tubes in it, fired it up, and it worked just fine. Like no problems. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's wild. They built stuff. I won't say they built stuff better, but there is some stuff that was built to a standard. Like I think there's more companies now building things to better quality standards than there were back then. I mean, if we really just want to go raw numbers.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, we have learned everything. Like, I mean, we haven't learned everything, but we've learned from the mistakes of the past.
Absolutely.
No one's making a Silvertone Twin 12 style amp like Silvertone did because that's stupid.
Because that'll kill people.
Right.
It will kill people. I had one of those too. Oh my God, I've gone through so much gear.
Have you seen inside one?
Yes, the one I had.
It's literally just parts.
It's a rat's nest. It's a complete and utter rat's nest. The one I had, though, sounded great, and it was given to me. A guy found it in his closet and was like, "Oh, you're a guitar player. Here, you can have this." Right. And I sold it for something. I don't remember. I've gone through so much gear. It's stupid.
Those are one of those amps that I just don't get. Like, they sound okay. Yeah. I think they sound pretty good, but they're I don't know. I would just rather have almost anything else.
Yeah. And for the money they're going for now actually, I'll be honest, at this point, we're at a weird time. Like, big amps don't sell. I was talking to someone today about this. Certain amps will sell. Like the Silvertones will go almost as fast as you can list them. Because people are into that sound. I still blame Jack White for that. That's still his thing.
Sure.
And also Dan Auerbach, just as guilty. But have you seen the price on vintage Princetons and Princeton Reverbs right now?
I haven't seen like a non-reverb, but like, I mean, I know Princeton's are probably pushing $2,500 or so.
I was listening to an episode of I think it's Dave Friedman's podcast, Tone Talk. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had Tom Bukovac on there. And they were asking the question, like, he was like, they were asking him, what's the piece of gear that you see selling so fast that you can't, it blows your mind, right? And the piece of gear was Princeton Reverbs. He said, I just bought one for a guy. It's 65, blackface, Princeton Reverb. I think he said he paid almost $4 for it in Nashville.
That's crazy.
He said, you can't find them. They're selling so fast.
Well, and that's the thing. And that was, I saw that trend like happening in real time, right? So everyone was trading in their twins and their supers for deluxes and Princetons.
Yep.
And I mean, for good reason. A Princeton reverb or a deluxe reverb is pretty awesome. You know, you dime it and it's just, turn the bass off and it's great. It's so good.
I've got a 70 Super Reverb that actually is sort of the namesake for this podcast. I mean, I made the graphic for this podcast because of my love for Super Reverbs. I had two. I had a 69, but I finally decided, I don't need two vintage Super Reverbs. I just don't. So I sold the 69, and actually used that partially to pay for the cab for the Two Rock, because those cabs are expensive. They do not play with those. But I love Super Reverbs. They don't move. You can still buy a blackface if you're patient. You can find a blackface Super Reverb $1,300 to $1,500.
Totally.
They don't move. Twins, you can find them almost cheaper. They're a little almost. You got to wait for the right deal for those, because something about the Twin, that's like the iconic Fender amplifier to an entire generation.
Right.
Until
you get it home and plug it in, and you're like, oh shit,
and you're gonna die. You are gonna die. But those smaller amps, they're like AC30s. Nobody wants to buy an AC30 anymore.
No,
they're just too big. Except for Rhett. I've got my CC, not CC, the C1X. It's not a Korg made one, but it was after. Yeah, they had that first run of Chinese made ones that were like the quality control was shit. I had one of those a long time ago with the greenbacks, and it was trash. Like the wood was trash, the grill cloth was cheap, everything about it was cheap.
Yeah.
This one's much better made. This is that second run when they dropped one of the C's and it's got the blues. But even then, I'm like, I've never taken that amp out to a gig, and
you can't lift it. It's like, even with handles on the side, I mean, it's like trying to use or move a gigantic piece of luggage at the airport, and people looking at you like, "What the hell is this guy doing?"
But at least they have the sense to put handles on the side.
Yeah, like I love AC30s. I love that sound. I love old ones, but yeah, I mean, for that, just get a Morgan, get an AC20 or something, and just like
that's what I want. I would love to sell my AC30 and get an AC20 head and cab. Yeah, just because that's what I want. Because it's much more portable. You get that sound, and it's just much easier on your back.
Yeah, you're gonna run out of room with like having to buy all these matching cabinets, man.
I know, man. It's bad, but at least with the AC20, I think I would be okay with a 112 because it's a pretty small amp. I do love the sound of a 212 though. I really, really do.
Yeah. I like 212s and 210s. Like those are both my favorite speaker combinations for sure.
Yeah, the Avatar, actually, I got it because when I bought the Two Rock, I didn't have a cab at all, right? And so I was running it. Dropped to 50 watts through my I've got a Weber Z matcher. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah.
And I was running it into the speakers of my Super Reverb. So I was running it into a 410. So it sounded
2
great.
ohms.
Yeah, exactly. I put down to 2 ohms, and it sounded great. But I found a good deal on this Avatar cab, and as soon as my Two Rock cab comes in, that Avatar cab's for sale.
Right.
It was an emergency purchase. I found a guy. He cut me a deal. He gave me cab for $200, and it's got UK made vintage 30s in there.
Oh, nice.
I'm not a huge vintage 30 fan, but at least it's the good ones, I guess.
Yeah, I mean they're okay. They're just loud,
Yeah,
so,
that's it.
So
they're big and they're loud,
yeah.
And I don't know. I get picky about speakers. I get real picky about them.
I do too. I'm picky about a lot of things.
Well, yes, and that's okay though. At least you like tube screamers, so we got that going for you.
Yeah, you're definitely, you're either like you like the tube screamers or you like a blues breaker, and there's like, I feel like those are the camps most people live in. I mean, some people like both.
Yeah, see, I'm a both guy.
I just like the blues breakers just don't like, even a good one, like, because I have the Black Box by Snouse, and like I've made some that I'm like I'll plug them up every now and again, like, oh, this thing sounds really good. But normally it's just not the thing I go for. So I'm very much like a Klon or a tube screamer guy. Like once I got the Klon, I was like, oh, okay, like this is it.
Well, yeah.
And I lucked out and got it right before everything just went bananas. So
I can still remember a few years ago looking at them when they were like $600. And I was like, that's ridiculous. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. No pedals worth $600.
Oh, I remember looking at them on eBay, though, and they were like, in that range. Like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And now I wish I'd bought every single one of them. So.
Oh my God, yeah, exactly, right. But there was no way you could know. There was absolutely no way you could know.
No.
Just like you had no idea your Wildwood Mjolnir would have a wait list and be sold, like resale on Reverb is crazy for those.
Yeah, and I mean, I see them priced pretty high, because that retails for $270. We raised the price because it's very labor intensive to make. It's like $279 now, but people are trying to get like $500. But like the KTRs, like people are asking $800, like $1,000 for a KTR. To me, is just it's lunacy. But
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the pedal flipper market is like its own entity that I don't really understand, because I want to meet the people that are selling these things. Like all the crazy price gear on Reverb that like eventually goes away. Is that because just someone gave up, or was there an offer made that's like, oh, okay, no, that's a reasonable price, and like you don't know because it's all like kind of hidden.
Yeah, exactly. You don't see the offer prices. You see what it was listed at. So, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to wrap up the regular episode right here. And listeners, you can follow us over to the Patreon portion of the podcast, where we're going to continue to rant about flippers and crazy pedals. And I'm going to ask Zach some questions and get some hot takes on some things.
Yes.
I'm going to make him make some difficult choices. So
Good.
remember to go to our website, 40wattpodcast.com. Go to our Patreon, patreon.com/40wattpodcast. You can find us on all the socials. Rate, thumbs up, subscribe, bell icon, leave a review. I think I got everything. Do all the things. And we'll catch you next time. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other and make some noise.